Okay. What's up, everybody? It's DG. I'm here solo, and this is my fault. DC and I had this on the calendar 3 separate times this week, and somehow we didn't make it happen, and now our schedules are all mixed up, and so I figured I'm going to break the rules and do a Seeking Wisdom with just me. I hope that'll be okay, because what I want to talk about today is I actually want to talk about DC, because we talk so much about learning on this podcast. And the number one question that I get from people, this actually came up. I went for coffee with Sam on our sales team here last week, Sam Boyd. Shout out to you, Sam Boyd. And he was like, DG, I have a question for you. I am a big Seeking Wisdom fan. I love hearing about all the books and learning, and I totally get it, but I hate reading. So how do I actually go about reading? And I thought this would be a good topic for today, because that's where I come from. I never read. 3 years ago when I started, just about 3 years ago when I started at Drifters, when I really got into books and into reading. And I learned a bunch of tricks from DC that have helped me read more, learn more, and just kind of really start to love learning and appreciate reading. And so I thought today on this episode of Seeking Wisdom, that's where I could break those 3 things down for you. Obviously, we got to follow the rule of 3. So number 1, and I hope this stuff is helpful for even if you don't, even if you're already reading, I think these things can help you get a little bit more out of it and hopefully level up your learning. So number one thing that I learned from DC, and I don't want to blow his head up. He's not here right now, so let's not make this about him. Number one, I learned from this guy, is read with a purpose. And so I used to, when I got into reading, I used to try, I'm in tech, I'm in SaaS. This is the world that I live in. And so I went and I got all these books about SaaS metrics and VC funding and deals and all this other stuff that wasn't really that interesting to me. And so as a result, I had a hard time actually going out and reading it. And when I got to Drift, DC was like, look, put away all those other books, and here's what I want you to focus on. Focus on copywriting, focus on advertising, and go out and find those books, right? Find the books that are about classic marketing. And so he put me on Ogilvy on advertising, scientific advertising, all the classics, cashvertising, all these classic, the boron letters, all these classic copywriting and advertising books, because that's what I love. That's what I love doing. I love telling stories. I love doing that piece of marketing. And so DC said, focus here. And so there's a really important lesson there, which is from Peter Drucker's book, Managing Oneself, which is focus on your strengths instead of focusing on your weaknesses. And it sounds so obvious, but so many of us, like myself included, just never actually go out and do that. It's so much. And Drucker's point is, if I am already, let's say I'm a B at marketing and I'm a D- at finance, right? It would be way easier for me to double down on marketing to try to get me from a B to an A than it would be for me to try to get better at finance and go from a D- to maybe a C, right? So what's the thing that you could potentially be an A at? And so I went and found all the books that I could find that were specific to what I was working on: marketing, copywriting, advertising, all that stuff. And now I only read books that are really in that area. I don't just read for fun. Well, I read because I want to learn, and that ultimately ends up being fun. But I go and find specific books that are going to help me. And so I think my lesson to Sam on this walk that we had was like, look, you're in sales right now. And I'm like, do you love sales? Yeah, I love sales. He wants to grow a team, build a team. I said, I would go find every book about people or lessons from people who have done that, who have built sales teams. Read about, hiring, growing a sales team, sales training, all the fundamentals. Focus on that stuff. Don't worry about all the books that we mentioned on this podcast. Go and find the ones that are interesting for you. And so I think number 1 to me is read with a purpose, right? There's a million books in the world you could read. Focus on the ones that are actually going to help you get better. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, this has actually been the number 1 thing that has helped me. I'm probably going to say that each one of these things is the number 1 thing. I always do that. But this is the number 1 lesson that I got from DC, which is read just for one thing. Okay? I want to say that again. Read for one thing, one lesson, right? A book might cost you $9. That is more than I have already spent today on coffee, because I got 2 of them, right? And that's probably more than $9. And you're probably like me and go to Starbucks once or twice a day, and it sucks, but that's the reality of it. And so for one book, I can get a lesson that might change my life, change my career. And so I used to always read like I needed to memorize every single word of a 300-page book. And that is paralyzing, because you try to take notes on every page, your mind just never actually rests. And so now I try to read books to get 1 or 2 key lessons out of it. And it's actually the way that we think about events, right? If you think about a great event that you've gone to, maybe it was Dreamforce or SaaStr or Hypergrowth, our conference, right? And what everybody remembers from an event is maybe 1 or 2 speakers that really spoke to them, if the Wi-Fi was working and if the food was any good. And so you can think about your reading the same way. Is there one lesson that you're going to get out of that book? You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to write a book report on it. Are there 1 or 2 lessons that you can get out of that are going to change your career and maybe change your life? And also, when you read this way, looking for 1 or 2 lessons, you can go out and read multiple books at once because you don't have to worry about finishing every single book. Which brings me to point number 3, secret number 3. I'm giving you the permission right now, okay, to quit books, right? You don't have to finish books front to back. And I have this, OCD in me where once I open a book, I want the satisfaction of finishing it. If I write something on my to-do list, it's satisfying because I then want to go cross it off. And the same thing with a book. If I open a book, I want to read it front to back. But DC, I was like, how do you read so many freaking books? And he's like, I don't finish them all. You quit. And so either you can quit after you get the lesson that you needed to get out of the book, or if you're just 100 pages in, 30 pages in, 200 pages in, whatever, 7 pages in, and it's not hitting with you, it's not resonating, it's not interesting, then quit the book, right? It's $9. If you come to our office, you can get books for free. $9, $12, whatever. People are spending money on worse things all the time. And so I want to give you the permission. DC gave me this permission. I want to give it to you, which is to actually quit books. You don't have to read them all, especially if you're reading for 1 or 2 lessons. Once you get the lesson, you can be done. And if the book is not interesting, just quit it. Life is too short to sit around for 3 weeks trying to slam through some book just because you heard about it on our podcast or read about it on a blog or somebody told you to read it. Find what you're interested in reading. So those are the 3 things that have helped me really jack up my reading. And I think within the last 2 years, I've probably read, 100 books, which I haven't read 100 books. I didn't read 10 books my whole life, and now I've read 100 in the last 2 years. It's unbelievable. So just to recap, 3 things to take away from this, right? If you want to, I'll come up with a title for this later, and we'll do it for the thumbnail on YouTube. But 3 things to help you read more than you ever have been able to do before. Number 1 is read with a purpose. Find things that you like and can make you better. Number 2 is read for one thing. Just get 1 or 2 lessons out of every single book versus having to memorize it. And then number 3 is quit. You have the permission to quit a book. You don't have to finish. Nobody's forcing you to read a book. If you don't like it, don't finish it. Move on. And there's a million books out there. You can go find something that you want. So that's what I got for you today on this episode of Seeking Wisdom without DC. I hope he'll appreciate this episode because I think we've been meaning to do this one for a while, which is like some tips to help you actually become a better learner and read more. And I think these lessons actually apply to the to videos, to movies, to podcasts. It's all the same, all those same tips. So my call to action for you on this episode, since my partner over here isn't here talking about 6 stars, which you should definitely go do. Leave a 6-star review for this solo episode. But on Tuesday, October 2nd, we're hosting an event here in Boston with a bunch of incredible companies, Lola, Mautic, Sigster, Terminus, Notarize, SnapApp, and Wistia. And we're hosting a kickoff to Q4. It's the last 3 months of the year for everybody in sales and marketing, one last push. And so we want to do an event together. Tuesday, October 2nd. I will put the link in the notes to this podcast episode. It would be amazing to see everybody there. And I'm recording this on a Thursday before I get on a plane to go to San Francisco for Hypergrowth West, which is on Monday the 24th. I think this is when this episode will drop. Hopefully it'll be amazing. I can't wait to see everybody out on the West Coast. Go and leave 6 stars, and I promise you on the next episode of Seeking Wisdom, DC will be back, and we're going to talk about confirmation bias. See ya.